I'd like to call this meeting to order at 5:05. My name is Dave Stevens. I've been asked to chair this particular committee meeting. This is to re-precinct Northampton's ward and precinct lines to become into compliance with state regulation. I'd like to take a spin around the room, and we'll start with Marion over. Identify the ward and who you are, just so we get this part of the record.
Marion Van Arsdale, Ward 5.
Richard Green, 7.
Wendy Mazza, City Clerk.
Sherry Cross, Ward 4.
Andrew Shalfa, Ward 2.
Jerry Bugger, Ward 3.
I'm James Thompson, GIS Coordinator for the city.
And I recognize we have two city councilors representing Wards 6 and Ward 2 here. Welcome them and ask if they'd like to join at any point in time. What we're having on today, and the first order of business, is to approve the minutes that Sherry did for April 20th, which I thought were very good. If there were any changes to those minutes, please bring that forward now. If not, can we have a motion to accept those minutes?
Move to accept.
Second, thank you. Now, Adam Cohen has been doing a great job of videography, whatever, putting this on film. If people are interested, please see Adam. He has these all captured for us as part of the historical record. And again, we can get that information out to folks as well. The rules are posted on the website, and I appreciate Karen and Karina for getting the rules and meeting notices out to this from the mayor's office. I also appreciate Wendy and James from Wendy, who is our city clerk, and James from the planning department, who have been helping us make sure that we're within the regulations and boundaries we're supposed to be doing. The rules about how you can re-precinct are posted on the website. I refer you to those. This is a posted open meeting. We must follow open meeting laws, and Wendy has passed out information on that. And the last piece of information before we talk specifics is we're under a tight timeline. When James was first given the data to when we have to turn it over to the state, there's roughly about 10 weeks, 10, 11 weeks timeline, which has to include 2 city council votes. So we are to the process that we have to make sure we can send this to city council, and then it would go back to them again at a second meeting for a second vote. So if there are changes along the way, we want people to recognize that we have a timeline we need to fit. If we don't turn this in on time, the state will do their own version for us and will charge us. So that's the homework that we have to pay attention to. I did this 10 years ago, Marianne and I worked on the 2002 Census Re-Precincting Committee. And at that point in time, there were 469 census blocks. The blocks are what you see up on the maps, these little tiny geometric shapes that are within the colors and the wards that you see up there. Those blocks have now expanded to 745 in the 2010 census. Our universe, if you will, for the population that the U.S. Census came up with was 28,549. That will be Northampton's population for the next 10 years. It'll govern everything from local aid to federal aid, and how money gets apportioned within the city. So it's an important number. So it's 28,549. The way the rules read, and I'll turn it over to James to explain it a little bit, but the bottom is you take our 7 wards, you divide the 28,549 by 7, and you come out with 479. So the goal is 479 people in a ward. 4,079 people in a ward. Yes, I'm all here. Yes. 4,079 people in a ward. This is not voters, this is people. 4,079. The range can be, because you can be plus or minus 5%, can be 3875 up to 4283. The precinct, which is obviously 2 precincts in a ward, can be 2,039 with a range of 1937 to 2141. Now those ranges and numbers that I said are relevant to the box that's right here. Okay? So we have to make sure that we're playing within that ballpark. James, there were other rules and regulations that we needed to participate or follow. What were they?
Some of the other rules have to do with the actual shape of a ward or precinct. It has to be compact and contiguous. So all of the census blocks that make up the given precinct and ward need to be immediately adjacent to each other. They have to be in a compact shape, and they cannot have what are known as long, skinny fingers, which would perhaps suggest gerrymandering.
So, our job, when we took a look at the first numbers, and you do the first chart up there, or is this the current chart?
This is the current one right
Okay.
here.
When we took a look at the first chart, we needed a starting place. And we asked James what would be a good starting place, and James said, well, let's take a look at if we were to take the ward boundaries that exist up until this point and put them on our current map with the new census blocks and the numbers. And we did that. And the first map we took a look at, and we then made sure how did we fit with those ranges and numbers and precincts we were supposed to have. And we found that wards 1 and 3 were basically fine. Wards 5, 6, and 7 needed small adjustments, where wards 2 and 4 had some significant issues we needed to deal with. 4 was overpopulated by about 400, and Ward 2 was underpopulated by about 400. Fortunately, those two wards are contiguous, so our plan that you'll see in a few minutes was fairly obvious when we started to take a look at the maps. One of the other pieces of information that I want to make sure that's out there for the elected officials in the room and for the reporters and anyone else that's paying attention, this is relevant starting December 31st, January 1st. So, whatever changes don't take effect until January 1st. So when we have our November election, we will be running on our old ward boundaries and old precinct boundaries in November. But when our elected officials are sworn in January, they will be sworn in to represent the new boundaries and new precincts. Everybody clear on that? All this really changes in the city are three things. Who's your school committee representative? Who's your city councilor representative? And where you vote. Makes no other changes to anything else you living or enjoying what Northampton has to offer. It's just those three factors, and we'll talk a little bit about how that changed for a few people as we had to become in compliance by making sure that we had all the numbers balanced accordingly. I'm going to take a spin around the room, and I'll start with Red, and you talked about what we found in Ward 7 and the solution you proposed, and I'll try to point it out on the map.
Well, the divide between 7 and A is Haydenville Road, running straight up. And we found from the block that we needed for the numbers was where Beaver Brook, on the left-hand side of Haydenville Road, it goes down Beaver Brook and then follows the rail trail in the Mill River up to the Williamsburg boundary. So we just added that little block in there, and that gave us the numbers we needed to roughly balance it out.
Okay. So again, what we found when we took the old ward lines and we put them onto Ward 7, Ward 7B was overpopulated by a little, and 7A was underpopulated by a little. It was a simple change to move this right here, move it over from A to B. Again, their city councilor is not going to change. Their school person is not going to change. It will, however, impact on where those people vote if we keep the same voting districts.
I talked to some of the people who were in 7A, which is across the street from the change.
Yeah.
And it's not a big deal.
Yeah. So just so
I mean,
that
you can see the houses, so it's, yeah.
we acknowledge that. On Ward 6, working our way backwards, I was fortunate to work with Marion and Richie. I went over to their house to say, okay, we need to move, which was then a significant number of people because we were out of compliance, by about 140 folks. And we looked at the map and we decided that the best feature was this little spot down here that James and I are illustrating. This has always been the Ward 6A triangle. In here, Ryan Road School is about there. And there's always been the Ward 6A triangle where this is Ryan Road, this is Bird's Pit coming out here, where they intersect. We found that if we were able to move this portion of people over back into 6A, from 6B into 6A, we would then be in compliance. It is contiguous. These folks are right across the street. This is right where that dangerous intersection is, unfortunately, but it's right there. It does not go all the way, it stops right around the bridge. It does not go all the way out to the street, just so you're aware. Okay? So those people now, and all the difference would mean, again, no changes in their city councilor, no changes in their school person. All they do when they go into the Ryan Road voting block is they stand in the left-hand lane versus the right-hand lane. Okay? So there's really no changes per se. Marion, do you want to talk about Ward 5?
Sure, Ward 5, the precinct B was slightly under-enrolled. We needed at least 11 people. And what we were able to do was move Hatfield Street from A to B. And that brought in about 30 some, which will be all that we need.
Okay? So this block here moved again within the ward from A to B. Right? Yes.
From A to
From
B.
A to B, yeah. So
Yep.
that's, these folks here are now going to be in B. City councilor, school committee stays the same. It will make a difference as to where they vote
Right.
because A votes at Smith Folk and B votes up at Civic Center. So those folks now will be coming down and voting at Smith Folk as opposed to
Actually, I
traveling
think it's the other way
over
around.
around. Okay, that gets
5A votes at the Civic Center
Okay,
and B votes at,
so they'll be
Smith Folk.
changing their voting places
Yeah.
for the people that are in this triangle. And that's all the change will be. Their city council will be the same. Now, the voting places, again, are yet to be determined for the future because the registrar and the city clerk would have a chance to take a look at this new map and may want to change them. So I'm just saying they could or could not stay the same. It's up to them to how they want to handle it. When we move down to 2 and 4, I'm going to skip those because they're a little more complicated, and I want to go to Ward 3, Jerry. Originally, we didn't have to do too much to your ward because it was in compliance.
Ward 3 was in compliance, but there are two issues that cropped up. One of them was, if you look where the loop is, where 91 comes on Route 5, there was a very tight portion there, and there was some concern that that might not pass muster with the state. So we switched everything from that place south into 3A from 3B. And it's basically the Island Road area, which traditionally has been in 3A. It was only moved in the year 2000. So it's basically, they go back to where they traditionally been. The other issue that came up was that some folks on Bradford Street asked if they could be moved from Ward 1 back into Ward 3. They had traditionally been in Ward 3 for decades and decades and decades. Again, they were moved in 2000. So my charge was to call and contact as many of those people as I could and get a sense of what they thought would be appropriate for them. And so I went to the city clerk's office and got a list of everybody on Bradford Street. We eliminated the folks on the other side of the road, and we ended up with 27 people. I have 2 families with 6 people who said they wanted to move back into 3. A family of 4 said, doesn't matter to me, either way is fine. And a family of 1 said, I'd like to stay in Ward 1. There's another family of 4 that, believe it or not, has already moved into Ward 3. They went to North Street. And then there's 9 people who either moved away or I couldn't find. There was another family of 3 that I called. They did not call me back. So basically, of all the folks that I heard from, only 1 person said, please stay in Ward 1.
For those who pay their Comcast bill, it's right here. And as you go down from Amherst Woodworking, this is the street. It was the people on the right-hand side as you go down that for whatever reason, when we re-precincted the last time, ended up in Ward 1, where the people across the street stayed in Ward 3, correct?
It's the people on the, well, yeah.
The north side.
The north side.
The north side. So they've been asked to be put back in with their neighborhood. Remember, all this area up here is all industrial park and nobody lives there. So these were sort of a dangling group of people that for whatever reason was sort of out there all by themselves. Even though they're in Ward 1, they weren't really near anybody else living in Ward 1. So that's why the recommendation was to move it back to Bradford Street. Now, James, if we could go down to that triangle piece, or excuse me, the lower half of the hourglass in Ward 3. I just want to make sure people were aware of that. Again, this is just one of those funny things when we took a look at the old map and we tried to figure out, you know, where could the state say, oh, we don't like your new map. The big area was a little bit further down.
Lower.
Was here's where the 91 exchange is, okay? And this whole section here, 91 all the way down here, about 60 people, were in 3B. So this had an hourglass. Here's the top half, here's the last half of the hourglass. And it sort of bottlenecked right here around where the 91 came. I had suggested, and the committee agreed, that we should probably see if we could move that over here. These are folks that live down in the floodplain. These folks here are all living in the floodplain as well. This is more of a tighter neighborhood that brings these people back in, as Jerry pointed out. Let's plug it, Leonard. As Jerry pointed out, we were originally in that precinct to begin with, so it's putting them back into that precinct. Is that a good representation? Okay. Our Ward 1 representative is not here.
Excuse me, there was one more aspect that we cleaned up with
Sure.
respect to the finger, if you remember, along the railroad tracks.
Yes. Help us out here, James. Where was that and what did we decide to do with that?
I would believe that it was here.
Yeah?
No, it's a little lower. May I point it out?
Yes, please.
In the,
Tell me which way to drive.
you go, no, sorry. There, up, move it up. No, move it up, there. There, perfect. Where you have, if you, this section, Ward 4 had had King Street, and there was kind of a no man's
Right.
land in there.
Right.
And there was a finger that had come up from 3B, I think,
Yeah.
that has now been eliminated. And now, but it does affect 50 people, these two blocks that are now coming into 4.
Okay. So that is a change that we didn't pick up before. So those 2 blocks were where originally?
3D maybe.
3B.
3B.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
they're
think
now
so,
in
if
4.
I'm in the right place.
Yeah. Okay, so people are aware of that? Thank you for picking that up. See these 40 people right here?
I believe, and that's, I guess I should pose it as a question.
Yeah.
Were they in 3A or, because I know it had one, they were in B.
They were in
See
B.
that right here.
Yeah, there was that finger, yeah. And we eliminated that finger by moving it into 4.
So they now will be in 4A. Okay?
Right.
Everybody on board with that?
Yeah?
Okay. Jerry, since that affects your ward, you're okay with
Yeah, I'm
that?
just, is that up at King Street?
This is Market, isn't it? Isn't this Joe's Pizza right where the 72 is?
This is King.
Is that where I'm at? Joe's Pizza?
That's north. That's Market where you have the hand.
Yes.
This is Edwards Square.
No, it was,
That's Edward Square, yes.
it's between Market and King Street, it looks like.
I
Right, so
don't
it is-
remember this happening. I'm sorry, I don't remember this happening.
We talked about at the end about it clearing it up. I didn't realize it had grabbed these 2 as well, but there's no place else for them to go. They couldn't stay in 3 because there's no, they could go over to 3A, I guess.
Yeah, because I have to say, when I was looking at it, I remember when we talked about it in the meeting, we said, oh, well, if we bring that section of the railroad track over,
Right.
it doesn't matter because there's no people living there.
Right.
But when I looked at the map today, I saw
That there's these
This.
50.
that there are 50 people.
So it's part of Market Street and Edward Square?
It's Edward Square.
That whole 50 thing is Edward Square?
Yes, you see that elbow, where the hand is right now?
Yeah.
That is Edward Square. I'm not
Okay.
sure what that lower,
This is the railroad track.
that's the railroad track. I'm not sure what that lower horizontal boundary is for the census block. Up, the next one up, yeah, that one, I don't know. I
Well,
don't know
the
what
block
this is.
isn't the block underneath it also 3? It was?
Yeah,
Yeah.
these 3 blocks, we had this strange figure that went all the way up here. Okay, it wasn't 3A, they were in 3B. So we had this finger, okay? And when we moved the finger over, I thought it was gonna be just this, but obviously we moved these over as well.
It could have been the result, remember when we were looking at the census blocks before the map did not reveal all of
Yes.
the numbers?
Right.
The original map said there were 0 people in it.
Yeah, so now we have
Yeah.
50. The number comes out right. Jerry, here's your 3A boundary, here's your 3B boundary. They could remain in 3A if you were to draw it there. But then you'd have this weird little shape shooting out here, because this is what's up here? This is 1A. So it's literally where 3A, 1A, and 4A all meet.
So it's basically one side of Market Street will be 3 and the other side will be 4?
No,
Jerry,
see where the hand is, that's the railroad track, so
Railroad
all
track.
of, both
Railroad
sides,
track.
both sides
Oh,
of
okay,
Market,
Okay. Both sides of Market will be in
There.
3.
yeah,
All right, it's just the part along King Street
yes.
that we would,
Yeah, you were concerned about the shape of it, because you thought that you had changed it the last 10 years ago.
Right.
And you wanted to clean it up to make
Right.
it look a little, less,
so it's 50 people altogether?
Yeah. 36 and 14.
All right, well, I mean, if there's a concern that that finger would cause a problem with state approval, then I don't think there's a choice.
Okay?
Can the public comment?
Yeah, we will come back to that. I want to finish the whole thing and then we'll come back to that. So let's just identify that as an area that we need to flag, and we'll take an individual vote on that. And we're calling, what's the name of that square?
Edwards.
Okay. So that means there are 3 changes now in Ward 3. Edwards Square, Bradford Street, and the lower half of the hourglass. The numbers are in compliance.
If you moved it back into 3, would that still be in compliance in 3?
Add 50 into 3A, yes.
But you get close.
You have a interesting, can you,
I think that would throw 4 out of line.
oh, good point, I just lost the chart. 4A,
79.
4A underneath,
We,
no, I think you're okay, 50, right? 60, 50.
yeah.
4A,
But 4 is 2002. I think the lowest would be what, 1979?
1937. 1937, so you're fine. So that territory could go back to where it was in B.
But if it goes to A, then you eliminate the finger.
right.
And you keep all those people in 3.
And you keep them where they are.
Now, how
Well,
did
you
that,
keep them in the ward.
2137? How did we do?
If we moved it, here are all the new numbers.
2137, you're in compliance. 2141 is your upper number. 2132, you're an upper number. You're fine.
Can we move it?
Again, if the premise was least disruption, it keeps people with their same city councilor and same, you vote in the same place? Yeah, you vote in the same place. Same voting, same school committee. I would leave it this map,
Yeah,
I prefer that.
okay?
yeah.
Everybody else comfortable with that for now?
And
All
it
right.
is an improvement.
It's an improvement, so.
And it will pass state muster?
Yeah, because again, I don't think it creates a
Okay.
funny finger.
All right.
The finger we were trying to get rid of was the finger that went up here.
Yes.
For whatever reason, 3B had this little line going up here. But since we have the numbers to move it over to A, do it. That's a better move than moving it into 4.
You okay with it?
Yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah, I think it's better in 3.
Better cleanup. Any other, just general, we'll come back and get more public comment in a minute. Okay, let's take a look at 2 and 4. That's where it got really interesting. And I'll turn it over to Sherry and Andrew. Do you guys want to walk through what we had to do?
You wanna go first? 601.
Yeah, well, as you said, David, we've got, we had the happy circumstance that Ward 4 had too many and 2 had too few, and that they were connected. That was key, because then we could move one to the other. And so the blonde area of 2 is now larger in the southern region, and it represents, I believe, Hospital Hill and the Grove Street area.
Yeah.
So we were fortunate in a lot of respects. First of all, the 2 wards that needed to have the trade were next to, or the differences were next to each other. And there was a collection of census blocks that could be nested as a group that would be moved into 2.
And then the other thing that had to happen to 2 was we had to, in terms of defining the precincts, we had to change the orientation of the dividing line between the precincts from north-south to an east-west. So that means that there are a number of people who are going to be moving from 2A to 2B or 2B to 2A. Ultimately, that doesn't really make a difference.
Which line they stand up at Smithville.
And just to be clear, there is no change 4A. All of the change occurs in 4B. I believe that's true.
So when you cross the bridge at the dike at Smith College, from there all the way up to Route 66, not including, and James, check me on this, and you folks are there, not including Ice Pond,
Correct.
up to almost Ice Pond,
Correct.
okay? Down Grove Street, all the way to where the new intersection's been created near Richards gas tanks, Richards Oil.
Yeah.
That whole triangle, if you will, is moving out of 4 and into 2.
Correct.
Now, Sherry, do you want to talk about any other options that you looked at, or?
Well, this became pretty quickly an obvious change because the only other census block that could have contributed to good change was the one that ran along South Street, because that has 311 people in it. However, that wouldn't work because it would have cut off 4A from 4B. And so we had to skip over that and then look to that quadrant that was closer to Route 66.
Okay.
This is the area. So, Ward 5, 6, and 7, one precinct moved over. Wards 2 and 4 swapped out this area here. Ward 3, we got rid of the lower half of the hourglass and moved the, we just cleaned up the problem that we noticed, and thank you very much, Sherry, for picking that up, around Market Street over in that area, the Edwards Square. But the Bradford Street folks would like to move, and that's the proposal to move in there. I'd like to take a break from the meeting just to ask if there is public comment. Do people want to share anything at this point in time? Please stand up, identify yourselves just for the record so we get it. Anybody? Paul, any comments from the board?
Just thank you for doing this, all of you. I think you've done a great job, and thanks for making it very clear, too, in the process, so appreciate it.
Mary Ann?
Same thing. I want to thank the committee. I know it's not an easy job, and especially when you have to have a counselor who's going to lose her clients because, I mean, her residents. I went through that, and it's pretty hard. So I want to thank you for doing what you've done.
Okay. Any other public comments that people want to share at this point in time? Any other concerns people have? The game plan is that if we can come to an agreement tonight, we're going to take a vote. We're going to send this forward to City Council. It'll be May 5th. I'm asking the other committee members to join us on May 5th for a presentation before the City Council. The second vote would be May 19th, with a backup in June 2nd, just in case something happens along the way that we need to worry about. And we'll make the timelines. In addition to that, we have to write the narrative, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but I'd like to set some teams up to work on writing the narrative so we can move that process along as well. We not only have to submit the map, but you have to submit the narrative, which basically says you start at this point and you literally walk the boundary, and you end up at the part you started. You have to describe that, and that gets part of the record that gets submitted. So I want to turn to my committee members. Any further thoughts or concerns that you have? And again, I want to thank Sherry for picking that up. That was a great find. Any other concerns about the map as we see it now?
David, what happens if the city council doesn't approve it? Do we have to come back in session, or does it go
We
to the
could
state, or-
potentially come back in session to have to reorganize it, or whatever the timeline would be. Do you hear that ball on your way out the door, Mary?
Yeah, we heard that.
Yeah. Pass the thing off.
We'll work hard.
All right, so any other questions, any other input that we want to capture?
Just one thing, it looks like it's gonna be set up good for the next 10 years, so that if there's changes then, they'll be a lot easier.
Yeah.
I mean, because of the shapes and so forth,
Shapes.
it's easy,
Yeah.
easy taking numbers.
James, can we go all the way out to the large map itself with the chart, just so people can see one last?
This one?
Yep. And then, yeah, move that off the map somewhere. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Any other questions or comments about what we see? I'm not going to summarize it again because we've summarized it enough times. This includes Bradford Street. It does not include Edwards. Edwards Square stays where it was. Bradford Street does move. Okay? We would need a motion to move forward from this point.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? To move the map we see in front of us and the numbers we see in front of us to the state as our final draft. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? It will be unanimous to move this particular plan forward. It is 6-0 vote. Our next steps will be May 5th. If we could show up here, sit in the audience, and answer any questions that City Council might have. James and I will work on a presentation. I don't know how elaborate the City Council is going to want to have of this, but we'll take a look at it and see what other issues are on the City Council. I think, again, this is a fairly easy process only because there weren't a lot of choices and we needed to move fairly quickly on it. We're not reworking any boundaries. We're trying to move as few people as possible, and I think we have a solid plan. Again, the other issue we need to do is to create these teams that we can take a look at the narratives. And I've already talked to Red and Marion about doing 5, 6, and 7. I'm going to ask Sherry and Andrew to write the narratives for 2 and 4, and Elva and Jerry to do the narratives for Ward 3. And again, you do have to separate out your precinct lines from A and B,
Right.
and for the most part, 5, 6, and 7 will just be those new precinct changes that you'll need to make. 2 and 4 is going to be a little more complicated, a little more work on your part. James can help you with some of the language if anybody needs that. Jerry, you're going to have to worry about moving the lower half of the hourglass in the Bradford Street issue, but I think that'll be fairly easy actually to draw those lines and to rewrite them. We'd like to set May 15th as a deadline for getting those narratives done. I don't even know what day of the week May 15th is. I think it might be a Sunday, but what the heck. If you could,
It is a Sunday.
it is, okay, May 16th to have those narratives done, so they can be part of the second city council package. We'll have a sense down to city council supporting it the first around that through. So you might want to wait until after the first meeting, just to have a sense, you know, if they reject it, then there's no point in writing it, because we're gonna have to clean up whatever the rejection is. But have it done by the 15th, and then that can be part of the package that we submit to the city council for the second meeting. You're submitting everything to Wendy. I'm available if you need help. James is certainly more technically apt to do this, but we will sit down and help you get through those. And then we have, again, the second city council meeting and potentially a third city council meeting, but we'll get a fairly good sense of it after May 5th, whether there's any major controversy or major issues. Any other business that people need?
The only issue that I have is if you're gonna submit this, this is an ordinance, and usually an ordinance has to get referred to the ordinance committee.
Okay,
So you're gonna need to make, I mean, you're gonna need to get
built
this.
in.
Yeah, you're gonna need to build that time in, because the ordinance committee will need to look at it. That's where the amendments will take place. They won't take place on the council floor, they'll take place in the ordinance committee.
And how often does the ordinance committee meet?
I think once a month.
And is there a set day, or they have a?
I don't know what the day is, do you know when?
No, sorry.
Okay,
So that's why I'm saying, normally what happens is if you're going before city council with this plan, you need to have your description done to go before city council, because then they take this description and they refer it to ordinance
oh, so it
committee.
would be better if we were to have this done?
Yes.
Okay,
When you say description, you mean narrative or description
No,
of?
narrative, the narrative.
The
narrative.
yeah,
narrative.
yeah,
So you would prefer to have it, that we need to have it by Monday?
yeah.
So we
Okay,
can do it.
sorry, take everything I said back.
Yeah,
I wanted to write the narrative after they approved it or not, but we need to have the narrative ahead of time. The only people I turn to is Sherry and Andrew. Is that something you could pull off by next Monday?
We're gonna do it tonight. We're
Fine.
gonna do it right now.
Okay. Jerry, you can work with
I'm gonna work with James.
James to do that. You two can work
we're
out.
gonna do
Great.
it right now.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah,
So
did you-
we're
I
gonna
didn't really
spend some
email
time
you.
today. We're gonna try to get the narratives done, and we can get those to Wendy by Monday. Monday's
And
our
that
drop
way I
dead
can
date
get
on
them on
that.
an ordinance, I can get it in
That
the
makes
ordinance
sense.
form.
That makes
and get
much
it-
more sense. Yep. Okay, if you could put this on the ordinance committee agenda, just in case there's a hoop here.
I'll talk to Mary Madura to make sure that she gets it on the ordinance committee agenda for the next meeting.
Fine.
we can tailgate.
Yeah, because like you
So
said,
Andrew, Wendy will,
it gives everything and it'll just.
Andrew,
it'll
that
just
Wendy
have
will
to
take care of
change
the
the wording
minutes,
on
like
it,
Wendy will
a
take
little
care of
change.
getting it on
I
the
don't know
ordinance
about Mary
committee.
Ann's, I'm not
I'm not
That's all
sure.
they
familiar
do.
with, yeah, David. If not,
Okay.
I could get a hold of Mary.
That's our game plan. We'll have this, we have to have the work done by Monday. If you have any questions, James or I can try to step in and help you, but we have 3 teams out there working by Monday to get this done. Any further business to come before this body at this time? Joe?
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't say thank you to our chair for doing a
Absolutely,
heck of a job
absolutely.
I
getting
agree.
us through this process in a very efficient manner,
In a timely manner.
and for the help that Wendy and James have given us.
Absolutely.
We couldn't have done this without all of your help and your input, and thank you all very much.
Here, here.
And too often, we don't say thank you to our city employees, but I specifically want to mention Corinne and Karen for the website, what work that they did, the meeting notices stuff. Wendy, who's been the Rock of Gibraltar with the open meeting stuff and just making sure, like the ordinance issue, that we're on top of things like that. But specifically to James, who it's nice, we can count on our planning department here in the city because they came through and, you know, James, what happens if we move this block and the block got moved? And everything
Right.
was fine. And, just for being on top of all that stuff, James, I really appreciate. And the reason I didn't mind wanting to do this the second time was James is still here. So it made my life easier. It's like, oh no, James can do it all, so I don't need to worry. But thank you all for participating. You have your homework. I do not anticipate us having to meet again unless there is a problem that crops up. So thank you for serving the city, and good luck in your future endeavors. Motion to move? Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask for a copy of that, we can ask after.
Okay, motion to, what do we have to adjourn?
Adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, we're lost.
Oh, that's,
Do you still want us here on the 5th?
Yes, if possible, be here the 5th. Come on up, guys.
Let me give you, I have my
just
I
finishing.
can give you your sections that you need.
Yes.
Hi there. Good.
So what are you doing?
So we're doing 5, 6, and 7.
Yeah.